Hey, thanks for watching. Today I brought out my Smith & Wesson Model 28, and I'm going to be replacing rib mainspring and rebound spring in the gun. Alright, so before doing this, what I'm going to do is I'll do a test run of the foot-pounds that it comes with stock. So again, make sure it's unloaded. So in double action, it's over the chart. The chart only goes up so high. As for measuring the foot-pounds, it hit that and it just kept going. So in double action, it's not even reading the foot-pounds here. And then in single action, it reads 4 foot-pounds. So go ahead and change this out and see what it reads then. So there's been a few other guns that I've replaced these springs on, so I don't even have to guess on which ones I'm going to use. I'm going to cut out the kit that I got. It comes with a 13 and a 14. I'm sorry, a 13, 14, and 15 foot-pound spring, and I experimented on it the first gun that I ever installed this on, and I started out with the 14 foot-pound and it didn't do anything for me. So I'll get rid of the 13 and 14 now, and I'll be putting in the 15 foot-pound rebound spring along with the rib mainspring. So we're going to start off making sure the gun's unloaded. We're good to go, and then I'll replace the grips on it. Or I'm sorry, I'll remove the grips on it. This is something that it's pretty simple to do, as long as you have a couple screwdrivers. They do make a special tool to do it. I've never had to use it. So we'll just knock these guys off. I don't think they've ever come off. As you can see, it's pretty dirty. Never been cleaned underneath the grips there. Really need some cleaning up. I'll have to do that while I have it apart. So next thing I'm going to do is remove the cylinder here. We have these 3 screws down below here. The first one here is going to be what's removing the cylinder from there. And usually the first one there's been put in with Loctite. The other ones have never had that issue. So another thing, make sure you got the right size screwdriver or tip on there so you're not damaging your gun anywhere. It wasn't bad. So that one's going to come out, and another thing I like to do is, as I pull the screws out, kind of keep them below the gun or somewhere in the order I pulled them out, in case one or two might be different than the other. And what I'll do is I'll take a look at the screws just to be sure. And these two guys they're actually the same. But I'll still put them in the order I pulled them out so they go right back to where I got them. The last one here, it's definitely shorter than the rest. So alright, so then to pop the plate off here, I'll kind of just knock around a little bit. hopefully knock it loose. And then what I end up doing is you've got your mainspring back here that's not going anywhere. You can see it's right underneath there, so I'll take a screwdriver, bring it inside, and give it a little bit of a twist. You want to make sure you're not damaging anything. So I just give it a little twist, and you can see how it's starting to pop up there. So what it's going to do, you can see the angle it's popping up. It's starting to pop up down below here because there's a part holding it in up above there, so you want to kind of pop it up a little bit and pull it out like so, because you've got I guess you could call it a key right here. It's going to be going down inside here, so when you put it back in, you're going to slide it down in there and then drop it in. So alright, so the rebound spring is going to be what's right inside here. So we've got to pull this guy out here. It comes right off. It's kind of stuck in there. Put it aside, and we want to pop that out. So what I end up doing there is I just take my little screwdriver. They do make a tool for this, just like I was saying before. The tool that's made for it will cost you, I'm not sure exactly what it is, probably 15-20 bucks, and you got to wait and order it. And what that does is it depresses the spring inside. If you look inside here, you can see the round part there. It pushes it in there, and then you have your post right here. You want to make sure you don't damage that, because that's what's holding the spring in place. So it's going beyond the post, it's pushing it in, and it's bringing the part up that you need to bring up. What I end up doing is I end up going inside here, going down below that, kind of twisting my screwdriver a little bit up and down, and you can see it's coming up. I don't want to do it too much more because that spring's going to shoot right back at me. So what I want to do is I'll put it down and I'll cover that with my finger as I pull it up so that the spring doesn't shoot out. Because now I can just kind of bring it up little by little, and you heard it release it. And I'll just leave that in place. I'm not even going to bring it out. Usually you can bring it out and put it back in, but I don't want to fiddle with it, so just going to leave it where it is. Put the new spring in there. Put the new spring back in. So the new spring's in. Now I have to compress the spring and push it down in there, which is where that tool I was talking about before would come in really handy, because this can be a pain. So I'll use my little screwdriver to push it in, and I have to be able to bring it inside here to be able to push it down. So alright, so that wasn't so bad putting that back in. Like I was saying before, it would be probably much easier with that tool. But I don't do it enough to spend a couple bucks on that tool. So putting everything back in place, we got this part here that we're putting in. It's going to ride on this key here. When you put it back up in there, you want to make sure it sits up and not down. And the reason being is because there's a key that it rides in right here. So it's got to be up and not down to be able to fit this back in place correctly. So before we put that back on, we'll go ahead and pull out the power rib mainspring. We just got our little screw right here. It's an adjustment screw, so we got to let the tension off of there. And it just slides right out. And you can see a little bit of a difference in the two of them. This is the new aftermarket one that I'm putting in, and this is the stock one. They've both got a different bend to them. You can see a little bit of a different design there. There's the indent going down the new one. The old one doesn't have it. And then you got the lip down here. It's a little different on the newer one than it is on the old one. See up there also. So we're just going to slide that back in place. Come up here and connect these guys. Make sure that's not hiding up there. Might have to loosen up the screw a little more, but that's going to drop right in. And when you put it in place, to make sure it's not out of place, I hold my fingers like so to make sure it's fitting flush and not sticking out on either side. And I'll tighten up the screw. So and then when tightening up the screw, you kind of get a feel. You don't want to over tighten it. You want to tighten it enough though. And you can always make that adjustment too after putting it back together and feeling the trigger a little bit. After you've tested it out to make sure that it's going to fire. If you want to play with adjusting the screw, here's your adjustment. You don't want to loosen it up too much though. Sometimes they say not to even play with that because you can have it too loose. So that's that. Everything's in, and we'll go ahead and put the cylinder back in its place. Earlier I had pulled the cylinder out. I had cut the clip on doing that, so I'll show you guys just putting it back in. That's what our first screw is for. After pulling that first screw out, I know I talked about it earlier before doing it. You pull that first screw out and the cylinder, it's ready to come out. So putting it back in there, just slides back in. Make sure it's lined up, falls back into place. It's all locked in, so the screw's ready to go in. So we got our plate that's going to go back on now, as I was talking about earlier. You want to make sure this part is in its place also facing up, but you want to make sure you're going down with it, the top of it first, and then go down with the back. Fit it in. And if you're putting it in and it doesn't feel right, don't force it. This one here went in nice and easily. You'll see it'll stick up just a little bit here. It's got to go back into its position. If you feel it's not going in right, I wouldn't force it. I'd pull it back out. Make sure nothing's in the way. You don't want to screw anything up. That's the same as for, when you're tightening them down. Doesn't feel right. Pull the screw out. You got to be careful when putting these screws back in. Like I was talking about earlier, having the right size screwdriver or tip. You don't want it to be on the outside. These screws fit flush. So when you get it back together, it should fit flush just like that. And so what I'll do is I'll go out, I'll take a couple shots, kind of test fire it, make sure I'm satisfied with it. And as soon as I know I'm satisfied with it, I'll come back and I'll put just a tiny tad of Loctite on the first screw there. So Alright, so it's all in, back together. Ready to test. Feels better already. And get our little tester here. We'll measure it for double action first. Okay, so for double action we have 8 foot-pounds now. Now it's reading. Before it was way up here and still wasn't even reading it. So that's a lot better. So let's try her out for single action. So for single action, it took it down to 3.5 foot-pounds. So before stock, it was 4 foot-pounds on single action. So it made a little bit of a difference. The half doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it feels really good. So, and especially for the double action, not reading before, and now it's reading 8. 8 sounds like a lot. But it feels really good. So hope I've been able to help you guys out. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.